we are in chapter 19. Judges, chapter 19. All right, so in this chapter, we're going to see that the situation in Israel is progressively getting worse, okay? We will see God's people behaving like Sodom and Gomorrah. And because of this, it spurs on a civil war between the tribes. Pull the Filipino there. All right, verse 1. You guys have never heard me speak like that, have you?
Do
you want to hear it?
Oh, man.
Okay, verse 1. Ready? In those days, when there was no king in Israel, a certain Levite was sojourning in the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, who took to himself a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah.
Yeah.
You're welcome. All right.
Okay, so let's start over.
No, that's fine. It's
Well,
all right. I'm Flip. I'm allowed. All right. Verse 1. The Levites are the tribe that serves the Lord as priests, right? Do you remember this? So they're the chosen tribe that serves the Lord as priests. We see over and over again throughout the book of Judges, there was no king. There was no king. And the purpose of that is because at this point in time, Judges is still the portion of their... They are in the segment where they have judges for their land, not a king. That the kings were a Canaanite practice, and they are not there yet, okay? But because there was no king, they did what was right in their own eyes. Because why? They weren't thinking of the Lord as their king. Okay, so if you'll remember, we talked about this last week. Starting in Judges 17 and 18, we are now talking about what happened prior to the start of the book of Judges. So now they go back. Okay, so we're kind of doing the history now. So the mentality became, you do what you want and I'll do what I want. Okay, this was their mentality because there was no king, right? So their whole culture was beginning to compromise. And his concubine, verse 2, was unfaithful to him. And she went away from him to her father's house at Bethlehem in Judah, and was there some 4 months. So this Levite had taken a concubine, and now we see that he had her at his home, and she plays the harlot, so she cheats on him. And then she goes back to live with her dad in Bethlehem in Judah. Then her husband arose and went after her to speak kindly to her and bring her back. He had with him his servant and a couple of donkeys. And she brought him into her father's house. And when the girl's father saw him, he came with joy to meet him. And his father-in-law, the girl's father, made him stay. And he remained with him 3 days. So they ate and drank and spent the night there. So we see that this Levite came to seek out his concubine. Remember, she ran back to her father's house. But he wanted reconciliation. He didn't want to divorce her. He wanted to work it out. He forgave her, despite the fact that she had cheated on him, right? And though we read in the Bible some grounds for divorce regarding adultery, okay, we need to know that God values reconciliation. Okay, and for those of us in here that are married or one day plan to be married, we need to remember that, because marriage is tough. Marriage is tough, and things can get like right to the line where you think you're going to call it quits. You have to remember what God wants, which is reconciliation. Try your best to work it out, right? Now, we don't know why Pops was so happy to see him. Okay, maybe because she'd been there for how many months now? 4 months. Maybe he's like, girl, you eating all the food. So he's like, all right, your husband's here to claim you. We don't know, okay? Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, so he's happy to see him coming to pick her up, right? Verse 5. And on the 4th day, they arose early in the morning, and he prepared to go. But the girl's father said to his son-in-law, strengthen your heart with a morsel of bread, and after that you may go. So he doesn't want them to leave, right? Sounds like this guy's a Filipino. I don't know. Yeah, Filipinos, if you didn't know, you're like, okay, guys, I'm going. And as you're saying that, someone's blocking the door, and someone else is making you a plate of food to go. Okay, so this sounds like what's happening here, right? He's like, oh no, wait, eat. Okay, so the guy's thinking, well, I've already been here 3 days. I'd like to leave, but let's see what happens. So the two of them sat and ate and drank together. And the girl's father said to the man, be pleased to spend the night, and let your heart be merry. And when the man rose up to go, his father-in-law pressed him till he spent the night there again. Okay, so again, this guy's trying to get going, but her father seems very hospitable, right? Well, sometimes it's a good thing. And when the man and his concubine and his servant rose up to depart, his father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, behold, now the day has waned toward evening. Please, spend the night. Behold, the day draws to its close. Lodge here and let your heart be merry. And tomorrow you shall arise early in the morning for your journey and go home. So, again, this guy's trying to get going, but her father seems very adamant that he stayed, okay? And of course, he's not trying to force him, but he's, trying to delay their departure, right? He's trying to avoid rush hour traffic, but them camels, they can go really slow, right? But he doesn't want him to leave, right? Verse 9. I already said that, verse 9, right? So here again, the dad is saying you should wait. The day is ending. Sounds like Hotel California. Verse 10. Wow. But the man would not spend the night. He rose up and departed and arrived opposite Jebus, that is Jerusalem. He had with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and his concubine was with him. When they were near Jebus, the day was nearly over, and the servant said to his master, come now, let us turn aside to the city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it. Okay, so the day comes to a close. Dude's like, we've got to go. Let's just go. So they leave, and their servant says, it's getting late. Why don't we turn into here, okay, into Jerusalem, right? So they leave. We got to remember that Jerusalem at this point in time is occupied by the Jebusites. They're foreigners. They're not actually Israeli, okay? And so he does not want to stay. We will see, he does not want to stay. And his master said to him, verse 12, we will not turn aside into the city of foreigners who do not belong to the people of Israel, but we will pass on to Gibeah. And he said to his young man, come and let us draw near to one of these places and spend the night at Gibeah or at Ramah. So they passed on and went their way. And the sun went down on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin. All right. So it shows us here that the place that they're going to end up is the Benjamites, where the Benjamites live. Okay? Verse 15, and they turned aside there to go in and spend the night at Gibeah. And he went in and sat down in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. All right. So if you're just reading this, especially verse 15, if you don't understand kind of their culture, the cultural reference, it'd be kind of hard to understand this. Their culture back then was you would, if you're traveling, you would pass through the city gates, okay, and there's an open square in the middle, and you would sit out there. You would just kind of sit out there, waiting for someone to come and approach you and welcome you into their home. How different, huh? I mean, we don't have that kind of a culture. So here they are. They choose to stay in Jerusalem. So they're sitting there.
You said they choose to stay in Jerusalem? No, you mean
Jerusalem. I mean, sorry, Gibeah.
Give me, yeah.
So ironically, we'll see it here. He refuses to stay in Jerusalem, right? Because they're foreigners, but unfortunately, his own people will not welcome him, right? And Gibeah is about 4 miles past Jerusalem, and it's already evening, okay? All right. We see that they're not very hospitable. 16, and behold, an old man was coming from his work in the field at evening. The man was from the hill country of Ephraim, and he was sojourning in Gibeah. The men of the place were Benjaminites. Okay, so this old man, he's coming home from work. He lives there in Gibeah, but he is from Ephraim. So he's from probably a different welcoming spirit, okay? Because the Benjamites don't seem to be very welcoming, right? Verse 17. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the open square of the city. And the old man said, "Where are you going? And where do you come from?" And he said to him, "We are passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote parts of the hill country of Ephraim, from which I come. I went to Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to the house of the Lord, but no one has taken me into his house." So he greets them and he talks to them, right? "We have straw and feed for our donkeys," he said, "but with bread and wine for me and your female servant and the young man with your servants. There is no lack of anything." All right, so he's going to welcome them. He's going to take them into his house, okay? The Levite man was saying, "We even have our own supplies and still nobody will take us in. You know, we're not going to be a burden to anyone. We just need a place to sleep." And this guy says, "Well, you know what? Just come and stay with me. I will take care of all your needs." Now, the tabernacle at this time was not in Jerusalem. At this time, it's in Shiloh, okay? But still, here they're stuck, and this guy takes them in. 20. And the old man said, "Peace be to you. I will care for all your wants. Only do not spend the night in the square." So he brought him into his house and gave the donkeys feed, and they washed their feet and ate and drank. All right. So there it is. He is taking care of them. He is welcoming them. Verse 22. As they were making their hearts merry, behold, the men of the city, worthless fellows, surrounded the house, beating on the door. And they said to the old man, the master of the house, "Bring out the man who came into your house, that we may know him." Okay, so in here, it's know him.
Whoa.
In NIV, it's a different set of words. In New King James Version, it talks about sodomy, okay? So different translations say it differently, but basically what it is saying is they want to sexually assault him, okay? So, here we go. The old man feels responsible to protect his guest. Would you not feel responsible to protect your guest? I would, right? So, 23, and the man, the master of the house, went out to them and said to them, "No, my brothers, do not act so wickedly. Since this man has come into my house, do not do this vile thing. Behold, here are my virgin daughter and his concubine. Let me bring them out now. Violate them and do with them what seems good to you. But against this man, do not do this outrageous thing." But the men would not listen to him, so the man seized his concubine and made her go out to them. And they knew her and abused her all night until the morning. And as the dawn began to break, they let her go. All right, so we are not in Sunday school, okay? We're not skipping over anything. Obviously, women back then were not held to a higher status as they are now, okay? They didn't have the same social status as men, right? Obviously. So you can see that their culture has really unraveled, because this old man is sticking up for this Levite, saying, no, 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 you can't have him. You can't do that. That's just vile. But here's my daughter, and here's his concubine. Still human lives, right? And nowadays, we would see that as just ridiculous, right? Back then, because their culture had already spun out of control, they're willing to just sacrifice their ladies, okay? Regardless of their cultural standing, the women back then, that still shouldn't have been normal, okay? Yeah, here, take my daughter. I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we see that when God's moral law is absent from culture, sin pulls the people into depravity, and this is what's happening. The old man is even willing to give his own daughter. 26. And as morning appeared, the woman came and fell down at the door of the man's house where her master was until it was light. So the concubine, okay, she went with them. She was forced to go with the men, okay, and they did all their stuff. At dawn, she appears at the door of the old man's house, and she collapses there, okay? 27. And her master rose up in the morning, and when he opened the doors of the house and went out to go on his way, behold, there was his concubine lying at the door of the house with her hands on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up, let us be going." But there was no answer. Then he put her on the donkey, and the man rose up and went away to his home. She was dead. She collapses, she's dead, okay? He probably didn't expect such a heavy assault to happen to her, okay? But that's what happened. It ended up taking her life, okay? So he picks her up and he puts her on the donkey. And when he entered his house, he took a knife, and taking hold of his concubine, he divided her, limb by limb, into 12 pieces, and set her throughout all the territory of Israel. And all who saw it said, "Such a thing has never happened or been seen from the day that the people of Israel came up out of the land of Egypt until this day. Consider it, take counsel, and speak." So he takes her home, divides her up into 12 pieces, one piece for each of the 12 tribes, sends it out. And remember that instead of staying at Jerusalem, key point, instead of staying at Jerusalem, where the Jebusites were, okay, they were the foreigners, he stayed in Gibeah. How much of a betrayal do you think that felt like to him? His own people, this is what they did to his concubine. So he divides her into the 12 pieces, distributes it to draw attention to the Benjaminites because of their horrific actions. He calls the nation out to judge Gibeah. This is how he did it, by dividing her up and sending her out so that they can see how bad Gibeah is. And later, we'll see how Saul cuts up an oxen into 12 pieces to summon all the Israelites to fight against Ammonites. It is a reference to this, okay? Next chapter. Then all the people of Israel came out from Dan to Beersheba, including the land of Gilead. And the congregation assembled as one man to the Lord at Mizpah. And the chiefs of all the people of all the tribes of Israel presented themselves in the assembly of the people of God, 400,000 men on foot that drew the sword. Okay, so they're uniting. Okay, that's a lot of people. Okay, the crime just shocks their conscience, basically. They're like, we're in. We need to know what's going on. Verse 3, now the people of Benjamin heard that the people of Israel had gone up to Mizpah. And the people of Israel said, tell us, how did this evil happen? So all the leaders present themselves. Okay, Deuteronomy 13 gives exact instructions as to how the Israelites are supposed to deal with situations like this. Okay, and the first thing that it instructs them to do is to verify the situation. Verify that there is a judgment that needs to happen. So this is what they're doing. Okay, they're asking. Verse 4. And the Levite, the husband of the woman who was murdered, answered and said, I came to Gibeah that belongs to Benjamin, I and my concubine, to spend the night. He tells them that the circumstance and tells them about the circumstance and asks them to judge the situation. Remember, Book of Judges. Okay? Notice that he withheld the fact that he is actually the one that gave his concubine to save his life. Okay? Minor point. So, line by omission. All right, and the leaders of Gibeah rose against me and surrounded the house against me by night. They meant to kill me, and they violated my concubine, and she is dead. So I took hold of my concubine and cut her in pieces and sent her throughout all the country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed abomination and outrage in Israel. Behold, you people of Israel, all of you, give your advice and counsel here. So what that means is, please judge this situation, okay? What has happened here? So, all the people, they're going to arise to attack. 8. And all the people arose as one man, saying, none of us will go to his tent, and none of us will return to his house. But now this is what we will do to Gibeah. We will go up against it by lot, and we will take 10 men of 100 throughout all the tribes of Israel, and 100 of 1,000, and 1,000 of 10,000, to bring provisions for the people, that when they come, they may repay Gibeah of Benjamin for all the outrage that they have committed in Israel. So all the men of Israel gathered against the city, united as one man. All right, so they united, and they're going to attack. And the tribes of Israel, verse 12, sent men through all the tribe of Benjamin, saying, what evil is this that has taken place among you? Now, therefore, give up the men, the worthless fellows in Gibeah, that we may put them to death and purge evil from Israel. But the Benjaminites would not listen to the voice of their brothers, the people of Israel. Then the people of Benjamin came together out of the cities to Gibeah to go out to battle against the people of Israel. And the people of Benjamin mustered out their cities on that day, 26,000 men who drew the sword, besides the inhabitants of Gibeah, who mustered 700 chosen men. All right, so they want them to send them out, the responsible parties, the responsible worthless fellows, okay? Who did it, but they refused to send them out, okay? Among all these were 700 chosen men who were left-handed. Benjaminites. Do you remember this? Okay. So everyone could sling a stone at a hair and not miss. And the men of Israel, apart from Benjamin, mustered 400,000 men who drew the sword. All these were men of war. All right. So they don't actually ask. You're going to see. They don't actually ask the question that they need to ask, okay? But the Benjaminites, they are resisting, okay? They're resisting, and therefore the civil war is rising up. 18, the people of Israel arose and went up to Bethel and inquired of God, who shall go up first for us to fight against the people of Benjamin? And the Lord said, Judah shall go up first. See how they didn't ask, should we go? It's like an either or choice. Come on, God, it's either or, right? They just asked, should we? Who should go up first? They didn't ask, should we go up?
Isn't this the second time God tells them to send Judah first?
Yeah, I think so. Back in like 8 or something. 19, then the people of Israel rose in the morning and encamped against Gibeah. And the men of Israel went out to fight against Benjamin. And the men of Israel drew up the battle line against them at Gibeah. The people of Benjamin came out of Gibeah and destroyed on that day 22,000 men of the Israelites. All right, so Gibeah has a tremendous advantage because of where they are located. So they end up slaughtering the Israelites. So we see here that Israelites, they stood up against evil, but they lost. 22, but the people, the men of Israel, took courage and again formed the battle line in the same line where they formed it on the first day. And the people of Israel went up and wept before the Lord until the evening. And they inquired of the Lord, shall we again draw near to fight against our brothers, the people of Benjamin? And the Lord said, go up against them. So now they're seeking his will. That's a good sign. Verse 24, so the people of Israel came near against the people of Benjamin the second day. And Benjamin went against them out of Gibeah the second day and destroyed 18,000 men of the people of Israel. All these were men who drew the sword. So 22,000 died the previous day, and then the next day 18,000 died. And they're in a battle, right? And we're in a battle every day of our lives, okay? The civil war within us. The battle is there. The battle is real. The struggle is real, okay? But God doesn't promise that it's going to be easy, okay? And we see it here. They are paying a very high cost. But don't be discouraged. Then all the people, verse 26, of Israel, the whole army went up and came to Bethel and wept. They sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening and offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord. And the people of Israel inquired of the Lord, for the ark of the covenant of God was there in those days. And Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, ministered before it in those days, saying, shall we go out once more to battle against our brothers, the people of Benjamin, or shall we cease? Should we stay or should we go? And the Lord said, go up, for tomorrow I will give them into your hand. Now, they're really pressing into God, are they not?
Yes.
They're fasting, they're doing peace offerings, burnt offerings. They're like, let's just go all out and find out, right? So the other two times God says go out, but he didn't give them a promise of victory. This time, he tells them to go out and he gives them a promise of victory. Okay? Why did God do this? Why do you think God did this?
He wanted the tribe of Benjamin to be destroyed.
Yes?
So they were getting set up for destruction.
Yeah? Well,
And
why else?
Draw them away from the city.
Yep.
They're going to think that there's going to be a repeat of the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe,
What else?
Maybe an example to show what Gibeah, is that its own kind of country, or is that its own?
It's just a
civil
region.
War? Or is this?
Yeah, it's a civil war now.
Okay.
It's all of Israel
Yeah.
against Gibeah, the tribe of Benjamin.
Okay, so maybe it's I don't know, maybe an example of what happens when you go in a civil war against yourself, you know, just a thought that
Within
yourself, you know, it's God allows certain amount of struggle to happen in a civil war because there's,
Yep.
divided. And
You're getting closer. You're getting closer.
So I'm thinking that God wanted them to definitely understand that they were not going to win this battle in their own strength.
Yes. They were not going to win it in their own strength.
They didn't ask the right question, you know.
Yep. So all of that, yes,
I think
all
they,
of that.
Okay.
That's right there. That's, you got it.
I think that they thought that, like, okay, maybe this what God wants us to do. God would want us to destroy this evil, so we're gonna go do it, rather than, God, do you want us to destroy this evil, and waiting for him to answer.
Yeah.
They're like taking that on and saying, okay, God,
Yes.
you want us to do this.
So jumping before the confirmation, how often do we do that? We do that all the time.
That's why I said that.
Oh my goodness, it's so bad.
Okay. yeah, that
You
makes
know,
sense.
and so God does this. He allows them to lose their men twice. And then at the third time, when they actually press in to God to ask, should we stay or should we go? Okay, that is when God actually gives them the answer. Sometimes we have to ask. Okay, we're good at asking, but are we good at listening? Are we good at waiting? Sometimes we forget to wait. Sometimes it's even bad because we forget to ask. So here we see that they asked, they waited, they prayed, they gave their offerings. Okay, so God did that so that their spiritual relationship with him would grow deeper. That's what he wants. 29. So Israel set men in ambush around Gibeah, and the people of Israel went up against the people of Benjamin on the third day and set themselves in array against Gibeah, as at other times. And the people of Benjamin went out against the people and were drawn away from the city. And as at other times, they began to strike and kill some of the people in the highways, one of which goes up to Bethel and the other to Gibeah, and in the open country about 30 men of Israel. And the people of Benjamin said, they are routed before us as at the first. But the people of Israel said, let us flee and draw them away from the city to the highways. So they've got a plan, okay? So they come out in front of the gates. You know that, what's that? Lion King. Was it Timon? And he's like, doo, 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 you know, that, and he's like,
Right
yeah, and he's like, doo, 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 and he does that song, whatever, and he's drawing them out. He's drawing out the hyenas, okay, away from where it is that they really need to go. Okay, so it's the same kind of thing. I don't know if you remember that. It was really funny. Okay, so here they are. They're trying to draw them, the Benjaminites, out of the city gates. So they're going to leave the city, okay, and they're like, hey, you know, whatever. And then as they come out to get them, they ambush them, okay? This is their plan, okay? And all the men of Israel rose up out of their place and set themselves in array at Baal Tamar. And the men of Israel who were in ambush rushed out of their place from Marah. I had trouble with this word earlier. Ma'ara Giba. And there came against Gibeah 10,000 chosen men out of all Israel, and the battle was hard. But the Benjaminites did not know that disaster was close upon them. And the Lord defeated Benjamin before Israel, and the people of Israel destroyed 25,100 men of Benjamin that day. All these were men who drew the sword. Telling you, draw the sword.
What does that mean?
Oh, well, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. They're gonna fight, and so they die. Basically, that's that. Okay, so
Sword drawers.
yep. So that is almost their entire force. Okay, gone almost. Okay. Now, from 36 on, we'll just be getting a recap of the ambush. So the people of Benjamin saw that they were defeated. The men of Israel gave ground to Benjamin because they trusted the men in ambush whom they had set against Gibeah. Then the men in ambush hurried and rushed against Gibeah. The men in ambush moved out and struck all the city with the edge of the sword. Now, the appointed signal between the men of Israel and the men in the main ambush was that when they made a great cloud of smoke rise up out of the city. All right, so that was their signal that their men had already gone into the city. There would be a large plume of smoke Okay, meaning they were already there waiting. All right, 39. The men of Israel should turn in battle. Now Benjamin had begun to strike, and all about 30 men of Israel. They said, surely they are defeated before us, as in the first battle. But when the signal began to rise out of the city and a column of smoke, the Benjaminites looked behind them, and behold, the whole of the city went up in smoke to heaven. All right. So these men, they come out of their city walls, okay, because they're going after the Israelites. They're going to go after them. Their other men are already inside, burning the place down. When they realize, they look back, their city's ablaze. Where do you think they can go? I mean, it's either go into the fire or try to win the fight, go forward, right? So they run out, they turn, they realize their city's on fire. It's toast. 41. Then the men of Israel turned, and the men of Benjamin were dismayed, for they saw that disaster was close upon them. Therefore they turned their backs before the men of Israel in the direction of the wilderness. But the battle overtook them, and those who came out of the cities were destroying them in their midst, surrounding the Benjaminites. They pursued them and trod them down from Noha.
Say what?
Noha. It's no.
Huh?
Sorry. It's Noha. As far as opposite Gibeah on the east. The Benjaminites were pinned against the burning city. That's what that means. 44. 18,000 men of Benjamin fell, all of them men of valor, and they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon. 5,000 men of them were cut down in the highways, and they were pursued hard to get them, and 2,000 men of them were struck down. So all who fell that day of Benjamin were 25,000 men who drew the sword, all of them men of valor. So they wanted to point out that though they had died because they drew the sword, they were still considered men of valor. But 600 men, 47, turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and remained at the rock of Rimmon 4 months. And the men of Israel turned back against the people of Benjamin and struck them with the edge of the sword, the city, men, and beasts, and all that they found, and all the towns that they found, they set on fire. Okay, so this is the final close of this chapter here. The tribes bring judgment towards the Benjaminites for their evil ways. All right, verse 22, chapter 20. Okay. So I want to go back to what we were talking about earlier, where we're in a hurry. Our culture is in a hurry, is it not? I mean, we're like, we want it now, we need it now, go, go, go. I mean, I catch myself at the light sometimes, when I'm late, oh, come on. Or like, the turning light's green, and you're like, come on. I don't honk or anything, but that's me.
I do if they sit there more than 5 seconds on their phone.
Well, on their phone, it's a good little tap, just quick little thing. If you have to tap your horn, wave at them. Wave at them.
With all your fingers.
With all your fingers. Because then it snaps them out of their daze, but then they don't get angry. Because they're like, oh, do I know that person?
No, just
Good point, okay? All right, so oftentimes, because of life and the pace, we get caught up in everything around us. For those of us that serve in church, we can get caught up in our ministries. We can get caught up in our job. We can get caught up in life. We can just everything, the to-do lists that we have to do, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you usually do with to-do lists, but our to-do lists, right? But what we have to remember is that God wants us to spend time with Him. He wants us to grow in him, right? And how many of you heard this? I don't know why I'm saying this, but oh my gosh, you look just like your dog. Have you heard that? Wow, you look like your dog. Have you heard that saying?
Yeah.
Yes.
Only when the dog was walking backwards with sunglasses.
Oh my goodness.
That's why I got compared.
Inappropriate.
So God wants us to grow in him. How do we do that? Okay, so there is that saying. For those of us in here that have never heard that, what happens is you spend so much time with your dog that your faces tend to imitate each other. And the facial expressions, the downward turn or the upward turn, whatever, it starts to look like each other, your person and your dog. Well, in that same, I know it's bad, but it happens. I've seen dogs that look like their people. Come on, right? Yeah, see? You've seen it. Okay.
Nobody wants to admit it.
Nobody
That's the
wants to
problem.
admit it. I know it's rude, but it happens. Well, in that same sense, we are to look like Christ. We are to look like Christ. How do we do that if we don't spend time with him? Okay? It's very important. We could be so busy serving God, doing this for God, doing this for God, I don't know, what's it called? Conference here, meeting here, Bible study here, got to run this, got to make a meal for so-and-so at the hospital, whatever. That's all good. That's all good. And it helps the kingdom. But God treasures mine, our relationship with him, more so than all the service that we do. Okay? And if we want to look not like our dog, but we want to look like Christ, we have to spend time in his word. Okay? So that is how we get to know him. That is how we get to look like him. And then when those times when, you could fly off the handle, or you could be rude, or you could be angry, or whatever, instead of flushing out, you will look and act like Christ, right? So I just want to encourage everybody to make sure that you're carving out that time, especially in the morning, preferably in the morning, so that you're already spending time with Christ before you spend your day and get pulled out of your spirit. Your spirit's like, hey, come back, but something's already got you flying off the handle at, half an hour after your alarm goes off, right? So God isn't so concerned with how much you're doing for him, so much as the quality of your relationship with him. So I just want to encourage everybody in here, take time to ask him.
That's like saying
Ask him.
quality, not quantity.
Yes, that too. Quality over quantity, yes. But make sure you ask God, should I, God? Yes or no? Maybe so. Okay? And then wait for the answer. Yeah? Yeah, let's pray.